Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Toast to the Arts Show, where we celebrate books, music, visual, and the performing arts. Welcome, everyone. Today we're very excited because it is National Read a Book Day, September 6th. But I personally am going to say that should be a holiday every day. That's just one of my, things in life. But I'm excited because we're going to celebrate with a BookLife Prize finalist, S.L. Woeppel, and she is the author of the rom-com Flipping the Birdie. Now, who doesn't love that title? But she's joining us with her new novel, which is a psychological thriller. I love this. Rom-com to thriller and a psychological thriller. You know, those are the best. She is joining us to talk about her new book. It is called The Butcher and the Liar, and it is coming out in 10 days on September 2025. So you know how authors love pre-orders. It really helps them along. So check it out. Go to slweppelbooks.com. The link is in the episode notes. And you can, spell out the name. It is Woeppel. So welcome. How are you, SL?
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here talking with you today. And yes, every day for me is read a book day.
Hey, did you start, did writing come from reading as a kid, or did you write as a kid?
I did write as a kid. I wrote a lot of terrible poetry, short stories, and I did read quite a bit. I think in my 20s, I took a step back and I was focusing on my career. And then when I hit 30, I just sort of fell right back into it. And it definitely started with just reading voraciously. And then the writing came back.
There is something about 30 where we start to go, okay, now we're we got, the 20s we hustle, and then the 30s we hustle, and it's a different hustle. Then 40 hits and it's like, all right, I'm now it's my life.
Yeah.
And then when you hit the 50s, well, I'm just did that. And then I'm like, don't tell me what to do. No, it's a complete sentence. I'm there. Yeah. I think I've always been there, but it just became like, oh yeah, you really can. There is no excuse. It's fantastic. But I love that you go from a rom-com to a psychological thriller. I kind of feel like they're attached in a way at times because there's so many mind games that happen in romance.
Oh my gosh, you're so right.
Yeah. So I think and now I haven't read them both back to back, but there is that kind of connection, isn't it, about what goes on in the psyche and in our brains, all that conversation. I mean, if we ever just, if we could have a transcript of what our brain says every day, that would be kind of weird.
Yes. And that's the great thing about writing. You get that behind the eyeballs perspective from your characters. And yeah, I felt like it was a natural transition and I guess I don't really write for genre. I write about women, and I write with all my books incorporate a level of magical realism. Sometimes it's a little bit subtle and sometimes it's a little more forward. I feel like it's a great way to sort of address the challenges in life, the traumas that women face, whether big or small, in a more, escapism kind of way, a fun way, and sometimes just a dark and twisty way. And then the third thing I think that kind of binds my books together outside of a literary genre is really this idea of duality in humans, this notion of a secret identity. And it doesn't have to be, the first book was a rom-com about a superhero. And so she literally kind of has a secret identity. But this next one is just a more subtle look at The Butcher and the Liar. It's a more subtle look at, human nature and how we transition from who we are versus who the world sort of expects us to be, or who, our family and friends expect us to be. And so, yeah, I think that maybe they don't follow the same genre, but those are sort of, I think, the elements that tie my stories together.
Yeah, the expectations. That's a whole part of what happens. And that is part of the duality of where we're going to let those expectations. Are we going to let them live there? Are we going to listen to them? Do we care? And that goes with age too. So I'm just sitting there thinking the expectations, we start to get rid of that. Who cares? We start to get that way. But the duality, I love that you focus on that because we all have that. I mean, it's, when you think about the church lady on the SNL, have you ever seen that?
Yes.
Isn't that almost like the epitome of it? It's like, here, be angelic, but I'm going to stab you at the same time. Opera, all of that. It's, it's really interesting to me about how we walk with, we're smiling, but we could kill you right now kind of thing. Even though we're
Absolutely.
really super kind, we may be genuine in the kindness, but at the same time, we may have to flip the switch. And
Mhm.
I think women have that because we multitask. So flipping the switch may not be that hard to do. I don't know.
Right, right. Yeah, that's really sort of the definition of the way that I came to start publishing my books is I spent my 30s writing voraciously, but at the same time I had this career that I'd worked super hard for and that actually loved, but it wasn't everything about me. And so I started writing and for some reason it became like this little like secret of mine that I spent all my time writing. I mean, obviously my partner knew, but outside of that, I just didn't talk about it with other people. And it was this notion that if I did talk about it, I'd have to like be successful at it. Whereas if I just kept it to myself, I could do it with and just fail, right? It gave me permission to fail at it. And then there's something about hitting 40, going back to what you said, where you just don't care anymore. You're like, I'm just going to do what I want to do. And I don't care what other people think. I don't care if I fail. I'm just going to just,
Failure leads to success. It
right.
really does. And to me, it's like, if you're going to fail, just do it big and get it done.
Well,
Like,
and in writing, what is
move
failure,
on.
right? You write something and you love it, and, yeah, that's
I don't,
that's the end goal.
mistakes are everything, everything to me. To me, I think mistakes are the key lessons. It sucks. You have to go, oh, no, not again. I don't want to feel this, but you do, and you learn so quickly. And I think there is no failure in the arts because there's the process of it, which is grueling but beautiful at the same time, right? And when you do any kind of creativity, getting it out there. And then, then there's the editing part, which creates beauty, but it's a painful process.
Yeah.
So I can never really look at it negatively because I don't look at it like if it fails, it's like you put something out there in the world and you put your heart on the sleeve, really.
It was that fear of
Yeah.
failure. I think is because my day job is in a completely different industry. I work in finance and you really are either successful or not. That didn't translate to the artistic side of my brain.
Yeah, yeah. But listen, I always say this on shows, man, we want anybody in the world of finance to be creative. I think that's a very important thing. I mean, it's not all numbers. It's numbers, but like be creative and
Right.
and think about the other, I like the gray areas. I don't know if my banker does, but I do. I don't know if the IRS likes it, but I do. But this is the balance. And I don't know, don't you believe that we all have something in us that is separate from our career, maybe, or
I
maybe
hope
they
so.
they connect and benefit, right? Um, and hopefully you enjoy your career too, but there's like one side will benefit the other. You just may not realize it at a certain point. But in writing and that creative process, do you think that helps your career, even just the fact that you have this other outlet?
Absolutely. I think especially in, my day job, I have to be able to turn that off. I think a lot of people in my role would get sort of engrossed, take the work home with them, work nights and weekends, constantly thinking and stressing about the day job. For me, I just let myself fall into writing and it feeds my soul in a different way. And I think it's absolutely essential. And I hope that everybody has something like that. Some people it's family, and just being silly with their kids. And for me, it's this.
This is awesome. Okay, so now everyone's going to go, come on, tell us about the butcher and the liar, because even the name, I'm like, what? You went from flipping the birdie, which is like fun. That's a good title. The butcher and the liar. Now this is kind of crazy. I mean, yeah, this is crazy. Where it's for, like, where the hell did you get this? I just want to know. Tell everybody the premise of this because of how this is insane. And yet you know that this has probably happened somewhere in the world, right?
Sure. Sure. So The Butcher and the Liar is a story about Daisy. And Daisy, at the age of 9 years old, discovers that her father is, in fact, a serial killer. And she discovers this by sort of happening upon him dismembering someone in their basement. And he manipulates her into this notion of complacency, into sort of being his accomplice to some respects. And then at the same time, as she grows, she is actually haunted by the victim, her father's victim's ghost, that first person that she saw being dismembered in the basement. So it's a dual timeline perspective. So we see Daisy as a youngster living this life, and then we see her as an adult. And as an adult, she starts to have to unravel this like web of lives that she created as a child to protect her father, but also to protect herself because she believes that she's his accomplice. And so, as an adult, she's got to face her own nature as a result of her father's legacy.
Wow.
That's in a gist.
So where did you get that? I mean, this is all based in Chicago too, right? So that
Well,
gives it a
so
different.
her youth is spent in a small town in Nebraska. And then as an adult, she is based out of Chicago. So the story was really inspired because I grew up in a small town in Chicago. I spent in a town called Norfolk, Nebraska. I was there from birth to age 7. And we lived in a house about 3 blocks away from a cattle auction. And that's where Daisy lives, is right next to a cattle auction. And the cattle
Oh my
auction is a
gosh.
very primary, it's a character in and of itself in the story. And she loves the cattle auction. She loves the cattle. She spends all of her free time there because her parents are basically, they're busy doing other things. And I grew up, those years, you don't remember a lot from being that young, but for some reason, that cattle auction, we didn't have anything to do with cattle. We were not, farmers or anything, but we spent so much time there. And I just remember the sensory experience of it was quite impactful to me as a kid. And I feel like moving away when I was 7 was actually the best thing because it kind of stayed in that bubble. You remember things as a child in a way different than if you grow up all the way with those things, because memories and ideas and feelings are dulled, I think, as we grow into adulthood. But sort of this memory of this cattle auction is encapsulated very perfectly in my brain as sort of almost a magical place. And so her father is a butcher by trade, and that's why they live so close to the cattle auction.
Wow.
And so that was really the inspiration for the story. And then later I lived in Chicago's Fulton Market, which at the time I lived there, it was very quickly transitioning from an old meatpacking district into sort of a more upscale, like high-end restaurant-y, high-end condo neighborhood, which
So you went from cattle to meatpacking.
right,
The
exactly.
meatpacking, most people think of Nebraska as the meatpacking central,
Yeah.
but then you went to Chicago, not that far away, but yeah, I suppose not far from me, but yeah, but okay, so you've got you're following the meat across the country. You
Right.
went from here's the cattle to the meat packing industry to now you can eat the meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, butcher it, yeah, human or cattle, and in the story, right? So Daisy's dad was a butcher, and
Yes.
so he now knows how to slice up his people that he kills,
Right.
and for a little girl to stumble upon that. I mean, I think about 9 years old. You're already creating stories. So at that point, it's like surreal. And at the same time, you're at that age where you can create a story to cover it up, like really well.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
we're
you're
all
quite
playing stories, aren't we, in the backyard with our friends?
and it's interesting because she has to create these stories, and hide what's really going on in her house at the same time as she's playing with the neighbor boy, you know, with Star Wars toys in the backyard. So it's this like dichotomy of who she is at home versus who she is just
Mm.
outside of her home. And she's still a little girl. She's still, 9, 10 years old. So, that was an
Did she
interesting.
did she view it as responsibility? Like, did she feel like, oh, I'm doing something important by doing this when she was 9?
No, I think she was doing it because it was her father. And even though she knew what was happening was wrong, she had that clear understanding that this is not a good thing. This is not okay. Her father was her father. And it's in a kid's nature to want to get love and, and connection to their
Mhm.
parent so his secret became her secret. And it wasn't out of necessarily fear or even so much manipulation, but about wanting her father to care for her and wanting to protect him, even though he was, an evil person.
That's messed up, you know?
Yeah, totally.
This is
That's
so
what
messed up.
creates.
No, that's what I was like, when I saw this, I was like, where the hell did you get this from, man? It's like, yeah, I came from Nebraska, from a cattle auction to a meat packing place in Chicago. This is crazy. And then it's like, okay, so, but you know that this has got to have happened. How many families, the kids end up in the crimes and then go off and they have to wrestle with this for the rest of their life. I think it's a form of abuse, really.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
obviously the criminals are abusive because they're killing people or whatever they're doing and just in general. So for her, this is traumatic. And can you go see a therapist and go, hey, well, my dad was a serial killer. How do I get over this and not get the father implicated? I mean, that whole thing, isn't that kind of, yeah, I mean, in a way, I have a feeling that the story, and I wonder about this a lot with psychological thrillers or any kind of psychological book where it's like a mystery or heavy in that way, that it helps those really going through something traumatic that they understand that they're not alone. Because if an author brought this up to the table, brought this up as a story, there's always an element of truth somewhere. It
Sure.
is. So I wonder about someone reading this and identifying with Daisy in some way of whatever they've gone through in their life, having to shut up over something that may be bad. I mean, abusers do that. They make you shut up and tell a story.
Right. And a lot of times, it's someone close to you and you're forced to remain silent. So it really is like a taking what a lot of people experience in the world and some sort of childhood trauma that stays with you forever. Sometimes you can't ever really get rid of it. You have to learn to live with it. And how you learn to live with it, whether that's through therapy, whether that's through, talking it out with friends or however it is. And it can be any secret really. And it's a lot of times, it's interesting because it's not necessarily the victim's secret to keep. It's somebody else did this or did this to you or you saw it or something and that secret is thrust upon you. So not only do you have to live with the consequences, but you have to live with, do I tell this secret? Is it now suddenly my secret? And if I do tell it, am I suddenly at fault? Am I now involved versus just tattling on someone who did something? You're now invested.
Mm. Well, I know you're stuck in it and you didn't do anything that happened to you,
Right.
But
Right.
but at the same time, but the thing is, so she stays and now runs this butcher shop, right?
Right.
And
So
that's crazy.
yeah,
Like,
because she does take something of her father, because her father it's this duality, right? He's a serial killer, but he's also her father. And he's not a good father, but he's not a terrible father if you completely separate what he's doing in the basement. And so she eventually learns the trade from him. And, that is who she becomes. She becomes a butcher. She takes that legacy. And so it's about her, can she take certain aspects from him without taking all of it? How do you balance that? How do you reconcile those two things, that you are a product of your parents? I mean, we all do that, right? We're all a product of our parents in one way or another, and we push against it and we reject it. And, it eventually rears its head in one way or another. Hopefully not like this, but,
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So you go through this journey with her, and at the same time, there's the ghost from the woman that was being butchered by her dad that she saw,
Mhm.
that is speaking to her, but like getting to her. But then how do you go from like, does she know if it's truly a ghost or is her conscious like talking to her and like trying to solve it? Because I always wonder about that. When someone passes on, we say, oh, we're talking to them, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I do. I talk to my dead friends all the time,
Yeah.
family and friends, and I think I hear them telling, or am I just know what they would say? Am I
Right.
just holding a council conversation, like a round table? It's like a round table. I have a party in my head all the time. It's all these people. I have a lot of dead friends. It sucks. I have a lot of living ones too, and that's good. But, you kind of have those moments. And I always go like, all right, you think this, but then like something weird will happen, like a penny or the 1111 thing or something will happen. I go, dude, like a song will come on just when I'm thinking. And I go, all right, maybe. And then I go, I don't know. So because
Yeah.
I tend to the woo woo side, but then sometimes I'm also really into science, and the science and woo woo is getting really closer now. So I
Mhm.
don't know. So it seems like your book and everyone again, let me just give the name out again because it's so good. Butcher and the Liar, out September 16th. Yeah. Does she go through that part of it with this ghost is it real or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think Marina is the ghost, and she's a character in the book, right? She has her own past, her own story. I mean, she was viciously killed by this man. And so all of a sudden she's stuck to this kid, this 9-year-old kid, and she doesn't know why she's there. She has no memory of her life before. So, um, is that Daisy sort of mentally creating this manifestation of her guilt and shame, or is this a real ghost? I can't give that part away, but it's the exploration of sort of their relationship, and only Daisy can see her, and she's just a constant, and she's a constant for a very long time. And because Daisy doesn't have much in the way of parents, and she's sort of this feral child who doesn't build any connection to real people outside of maybe the neighbor boy. Marina becomes her companion. It's her only sort of way out of loneliness because her father is basically absent. Her mother is very ill and isn't really raising her. And so I always refer to them as trauma ghosts, right? It's trauma ghost is the manifestation of something, whether it's the death of a loved one, and that can be, an animal that shows up that your loved one knew, that the favorite animal of your loved one shows up and you see them, a connection there, or it can be the mind's delusion of a ghost, or it can be anything really, but it's just how we carry that trauma with us. And whether it's in a real true ghost form or something completely different, we always carry
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just think it's this. Yeah, there's no real boundaries. We
Right.
want to, as humans, we want boxes and make it all neat, And this is where creativity goes. Now let's, kick up the dirt a little and see what's really there. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of creativity because when we put everything in a box, we limit, and sometimes we do that in business. It's like, oh no, you're
I'm
not allowed to
sure.
do this. If you write a story, it must be this genre. You need to stick to that. Don't you dare do a rom-com and then go to a psychological thriller. What are you thinking? Only
Right.
stay in one genre. No. Every musician, writer I know, creativity is supposed to kick up the dirt. And I
Hmm.
think that's the same in, life and death. I think there's this, I don't think we actually know yet 100%. I just don't think we're there yet. If we still don't know why we're here, why should we know why we go and how connected or not we are? You know what I mean? We're not there yet, but we're trying, I suppose. We can take flights to space now, But yeah, I love these kinds of books because it makes you really think and it's a story that will sit with you,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, if you talk to someone from 200 years ago and you try to explain to them the notion of the internet, maybe 1% of the population would be like, okay, I'm getting behind this. I get this. It would be witchcraft to them, or it would be something completely out of the realm of possibility. With the supernatural or with the otherworldly or with life after death, in 200 years, maybe never, but we're just not capable of understanding if, what's out there. And
Well, we limit ourselves
yeah.
because of fear. And this is the beauty of books like psychological thrillers bring in that fear element and it makes us dip our toes in the water a little bit, right? And
Hmm.
it's safe because it's in a book.
Yeah,
But it still scares you. I mean, it does freak you out. And makes you think differently. Makes you you meet someone you don't quite like them, you got a vibe about them, then you go, could you be a butcher down the stairs butchering people? Like, could you flip to that side,
yeah. And
I
that's
don't
part of Daisy's journey as an adult, right? She's constantly second guessing the people around her and what they're capable
Yeah.
of and what they're hiding. And she wonders what she's hiding too. She wonders who she could be and what she's capable of.
Is
So
she going to be like him?
exactly, exactly. Can she escape that, or is she bound to relive her father's
Mm,
legacy to be stuck there? Yeah, I mean,
that's
that's
messed
what's
up.
so great about fiction. It's like, we all feel that. We all feel like we're stuck in something at some point in our lives, and with fiction, you can just play with it
Yeah,
and go
take
to
it
the
to the
extreme.
extreme.
Exactly.
Just push the envelope for us so that we can feel like, all right, maybe our situation isn't as bad as Daisy's.
Right. Find solace in
Hopefully.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, hopefully, my gosh. But someone out there is going through that.
of
Because
course.
there's so many criminals out there and the kids end up in it and it's sad, but it's true. But it's like, yeah, how do you shake that? How do you shake, getting away from that and not being that just because you're a blood relative? And that's the thing. We're all into genealogy, right? Looking up
Mhm.
our family thing. Oh, well, did they have heart disease? Am I gonna have it? Diabetes, whatever it is, right? They have my traits or I have their traits, so and so did this and that. Well, we look and it's like, oh, we got a Nazi in the family. Oh, we have somebody who had slaves. Does that make me that way?
Yeah,
So
and you feel
it
this
can go either
generational
way.
guilt.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you find out that there's, like, a Nazi in your family, you're gonna immediately feel a level of guilt, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with you. Like, there's just, like, this notion that
it's gross.
because
I
my
can tell you
find it.
that. I can
Yeah.
tell you that as honest as I can be.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we have them. Yes, and it's gross and it makes you make damn sure you're not. Know what
Right.
I mean? You really, it makes you, and so that's a beauty thing is you don't want to know that. I mean, even to talk about it, in this day and age, we could, people can start messaging us and get it stupid. But I mean, this was, a long time ago in our family and it's creepy and gross. And like, no way, there's
Right.
no way. Different lifestyles, you can change the past. You don't have to. But that's that growth you all go through. But when you find out stuff, it's pretty freaky. It is freaky. And you have to sit and stew in it. And
Probably makes you
there is
overthink
guilt.
every
Right.
decision in your life. You're overthinking what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're presenting yourself because,
So
because
now
of
we
the
all have
pain of the past is
PTSD.
in the blood. Yeah,
We all,
exactly.
it's kind of what I was thinking about for Daisy. I feel like she has a little bit of that, like
Oh, sure.
PTSD, because it just keeps, it's like, yeah, that's a rough one, man. Wow. So what's next for you? I mean, it seems like you're really busy. I mean, because when you look at Flipping the Birdie came out in 2024, you got another one 2025. I mean, is a book a year? And having a career on top of this. I mean, yeah, you seem busy because there's research I mean, did you have to research cutting up bodies and stuff?
Oh my gosh, you don't even wanna see my search history. I watch so many butcher videos, like, I was my YouTube, I just I didn't see any videos of anybody cutting up people, that wasn't a thing that I looked for. But just, there was because the career that they both have is such a present it's not about the career, but it's always present, like, this is how they ultimately connect, is through the practice of butchering, not necessarily humans, but, like, just, the regular act of butchering, and so yeah, I wanted to be authentic in that. So I watched all kinds of videos and looked up, talked to people and learned more about butcher shop and running a butcher shop and the practice of butchering than I ever would want to.
I have to tell you this, the Nazi side of my family were butchers.
Oh my gosh.
No, it's not why I wanted to interview you, but I just realized as we're talking, I'm like, holy cow, look at that. Isn't that wild? Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
wild.
That is wild. Yeah. And the Nazi person actually got killed in the streets of LA with his chest burned off.
Oh
Yeah.
my
That's a whole,
gosh.
yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
book in of itself right there.
It is. It is. It has, and they say that after World War II, and I don't know if it's just like a city history mystery kind of thing, that the military after World War II in LA had like they went and worked with the mob to go after any Nazis still around. And that's what happened. And it sounds like it.
Wow.
If you find someone, yeah, yeah. Isn't that crazy? So I don't know how much we're still working on this. So I'll let you know. You could do
Okay. Yeah.
that. It's so, yeah. So crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, so are you going to do another story? What?
I have a few works in progress. I don't know that I'll be able to do one a year indefinitely.
Yeah, I know. It's
Uh,
like, oh, you've done it once and twice. Now you need to keep that, No, you can do whatever you want. Isn't
Yeah,
that
I
the
mean
beauty?
yeah, exactly. I've definitely got more, as long as someone wants to read them, I'm gonna keep writing them. I love it. It's a compulsion. It's like you just have to do it kind of no matter what. And that's what I think is so great about creativity and the arts is
Mm.
most of the time you're not doing it because you want success. You're doing it because you can't do anything else.
You have
Mm.
to.
Yeah.
Creativity, when you've got that in you, it will drive you insane.
Yeah.
It will drive you nuts if you don't do what is in you. it will drive you nuts. So, it's a good thing, I think, when you put it out on paper, and it's cool. Do you talk to your characters?
I don't talk to my characters, but one thing that was interesting is that made me like, oh, these characters are really alive in my life is my dad passed away in 2022. And I went
Oh.
back to that, and he was buried in in Norfolk, Nebraska, where I spent the first 7 years of my life. And I really hadn't been back there much since then, since I was a kid. And I went to this cattle auction, and I had written this book, was still going through editing at that point. And I went back to this cattle auction, and I had all these memories when I started the book of being there, but when I got there, I didn't, and it was closed. The facilities and everything were still there, but the auction had closed in 2015. But it just sort of sat there dilapidated. And it was really sad, actually. But I went there, and I was talking to my husband, and I wasn't thinking of myself there. I was thinking of Daisy and her story, and seeing her run through these catwalks, and the people that she interacted with, and Marina and her father. And then I said to my husband, I was like, oh, that's where the butcher shop was. And he's like, wait, there was actually a butcher shop there? And I said, oh, I don't know. But like in my mind, the experience of her and her father and the people that came into her life, it wasn't my memory anymore. It was hers. And I thought that was really, like, afterwards I thought about that. And I was like, oh, wow. So they really do come alive. I guess I don't speak to them, but I think about them a lot.
It's trippy. And how do you know that your characters don't come from like a past life or something? Like they're real. Like when you talk about ghosts and magic and, that kind of thing. I always wonder about that. Like how much of our creativity is pure creativity or something that we've been developing for eons that we don't even
Right.
know how to count the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? So it makes
Yeah. Well, but the other thing too is memories also change. And what we
Yes.
remember as a 9-year-old and what is actual fact from an adult perspective is night and day. It's still horrific, right? What Daisy went through.
And
But
it's just
things
different. Like your capacity to form a memory at 9 is so much different than your capacity to form a memory in your 40s, 50s. It can be so much more. It can be such a bigger part of who you are. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, did you do any research on that when you were doing this? Like the psychological side? Like, where do we start to really freak out and what are we like at 9 years old? Did you have to do that or did you go just like I know this from my own sense memory?
Yeah, I think that part was more just my own experiences, my own knowledge, a lot of reading, but I didn't necessarily research, that aspect. And I guess, there's not a lot out there about like how a 9-year-old would manage her father's
Being
status. Yeah. So
It's still fiction.
yeah, I took
Yeah,
liberties
that's the
there.
thing too.
Sure.
No, but I think it just no matter what is how is a human going to deal with that? How do we
Yes.
deal with that? It just is. I mean, everyone's going to be different and wow. I'm going to be thinking about this all day long. Thank you. Well, this is the thing about books and I think we always find ourselves somewhere in a book, a good book, right? We always find something that we can identify with or connect with. And I think this is so great. It is, again, everybody, National Read a Book Day. Keep this going for September 7th, 8th, 9th, holidays. But everyone, again, the book is coming out, The Butcher and the Liar, again, by S.L. Woeppel. And you can go to slweppelbooks.com. The link is in the episode notes. The book will be out September 16th, but you can pre-order on all those great places. You can also ask your bookstores to carry the book. But thank you so much for joining us. It has been a real pleasure having you on the show. And I have to say, it's so cool because we're actually recording this interview on Book Lovers Day. So I think this is great. We've got this well done about handling book holidays. So,
Yeah, I love
thank
it.
you.
Love it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
It has.
Thanks for listening to Big Blend Radio's Toast to the Art Show. Please keep up with us at bigblendradio.com and keep up with Big Blend magazines at blendradioandtv.com.